It's bedtime, but I wanted to share my sobriety story. I'm feeling called to talk about just what caused me to become sober and what I was up to before becoming sober. So yeah, as you can see, I am in my bedtime gear. So no hate. No hating on Danielle, on Danielle's channel. Razi will probably join us. Come here. I was not always sober, but when I was growing up, my parents were pretty honest about alcohol, and we had some alcoholics in the family, not in like close relatives, but we heard about it. My parents were pretty honest about consequences of drugs and alcohol. I'd seen some friends, parents who were addicts, like in our area, like there was a lot of heroin addiction. So I knew some of my friends' parents passed from overdosing on heroin, which is totally fucked up. And yeah, that was like sideways trauma, I think, because well, during that time, I wasn't into like partying or anything. Like, you know how when you're a teenager, you're still drinking, you're still doing something, like smoking weed, something. I was really anti because I looked up to my brother a lot and he was straight edge. And that's like no drinking, no drugs, no nothing. And I was into it. I was like, okay, he's cool, he likes this, so I'm gonna be cool and like this too. And then later on, when he went into the military, I did start drinking here and there with like my friends. I was in a safe space, I guess. Whatever I would deem as like, I have the control here is where I would do it at. I think this is a similar story to just like everybody's story, but in my early adult life, I was working in nightlife and I was still sober for a while. I started being a spicy gymnast when I was 19, and you have to wear a wristband before you're 21, so I wasn't drinking then. I didn't ever have any drugs, so I had never smoked pot until when I was 21. I found my best friend on the floor of our apartment complex, and that was super traumatizing. And then I started smoking weed to try and connect with her spiritually because she was totally a pothead. And I started smoking weed. I had no issues, but it definitely became a habit, which some would say becomes an addiction. And I think it did become an addiction because I didn't necessarily love being high, but the hand to mouth thing and like the process of rolling up, like it just reminded me of her, and that was kind of my connection to her. That was my addiction. R.I.P. Carmen June. We love you. We miss you so much. So after I started smoking pot, COVID also happened during this time, so like the spicy gymnast restaurants were closed. I am speaking in code. If you didn't know, now you know. When they reopened, I went back and I was so fucking traumatized that I would have to drink to be there. Also, like, when you come out that environment and you start living normal life and then you go back into the environment, it's harder than the first time you went into that environment. Just dealing with the people, whew, the lifestyle is rough. It's hard. It's hard to do sober, which is why most people aren't sober when they're in there. You gotta be drunk, you gotta be high, you gotta be on something. So I was doing it to cope and to make it through the day. And then I started vomiting all the time. So I associated that with drinking, but then I stopped drinking and I was still vomiting all the time, but I was still smoking pot. When I moved to Florida, I associated my physical illness to my spirit not being cool with me being a spicy gymnast, which I also believe was true. I think that that was a huge stressor on my spiritual body and my physical body. And every time I went in, I would dissociate. When I would come out, I would come back into my body and I would throw up. I would purge. When I moved down to Florida, I stopped being a spicy gymnast, and I also got sober at the same time. The throwing up went away, and I went into personal training eventually, and I stayed sober. And then I lost another very close loved one. Rest in peace, Phil, Fling. He hated when I called him Fling, but everybody else called him Fling, so that's Philip. That's my baby Philip. But yeah, when he passed, I was traumatized again, and I started smoking pot a lot. I smoked all the time. I had to smoke to do anything. I had to smoke to breathe, literally. And I really hated being high. Like, I just didn't like the feeling of being not able to initiate tasks. And I felt very ADHD. I thought I had autism and many other things because I had a lot of symptoms of like those things. Eventually I was in the ER because I couldn't stop throwing up all the time and I couldn't eat food, so I was totally malnourished. Come to find out, there's this disease called CHS, cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And that basically means that you're allergic to cannabis. Your body cannot process it. And I found this out because the day before I ended up in the ER, I went to a GI. So I had been all over the place. I went to my primary care doctor. I found a new primary care down here, which was terrifying. Like, the healthcare up north isn't great, but the healthcare down here is worse. It's worse. I sat down with this dude that is my primary care doctor at the time, and I'm like, yo, I can't eat food and I'm throwing up all the time, so I'm throwing up nothing, and I'm just throwing up sound. Like, I'm dry heaving violently to the point where I think I'm gonna pass out and nothing's coming out. And I'm taking like 45 showers a day to not be nauseous, and I can't work and I can't eat, so we gotta figure this out. And he's like, you're pre-diabetic. Did you not hear what I just said? So I go to a GI eventually, after thinking I was pre-diabetic for like 2 months and trying to give myself like glucose tablets, candy, like anything to stop throwing up. Obviously I kept throwing up because I wasn't pre-diabetic. Okay, fuck the doctor's office. They do not be caring. I went to a GI, and the GI is like, well, do you smoke weed? Like, we go over a bunch of different things, and he's finally like, do you smoke weed? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, have you heard of CHS? And I was like, no. And then he told me about it. And then I was like, I mean, maybe, but it's the only thing that's like, I can think of that's helping me lower my anxiety and eat food. But it's also not helping me because I'm like throwing up all the time. And he's like, yeah, it might be that, you know, like maybe just cut back on it, see how you feel, whatever. Well, the next morning I still woke up dry heaving and I had nothing in my system. I could not get myself to eat after that appointment. It was just such a struggle. I would be sitting there crying with a banana in my hand, like trying to force the food into my body, and I just could not do it. I was just so sick, and it was horrible, and I was missing work all the time. It was just not a good time at all. See, like, my body still goes into stress explaining the story. It's crazy. So I end up in the ER that morning. I think it was September 27th, 2024, and they ran a bunch of tests for me. I'm not pre-diabetic. I'm just like dry heaving, and they're giving me an IV with like Zofran and electrolytes. And then they like come back and they're like, do you know what CHS is? And I'm like, I just heard about it yesterday, maybe it's that. And what really caught my attention was the compulsive showering as like a very specific side effect or like effect of having CHS. I was like, oh shit, like I definitely do that. Definitely do that. So I, as of that day, got sober, and I went through like a little withdrawal period, slowly got my appetite back, built it up, and I would say like a month later I was able to start eating more normally. And as of the last 2 months, having my nervous system back to regular after being like, you know, in situations that were stressful still, after purging all that, I'm thick as fuck. I'm able to eat a lot. I think I ate like 3,500 calories today. So yeah, I've been completely sober from alcohol since I moved to Florida, so over 3 years. And I've been sober from weed since September, so that's October, November, December, January, February, March, April. 7 months sober. So that's my sobriety journey. I am the healthiest I've ever been. As always, every time I get sober, I'm like, this is the best thing I could do for myself. And I really do try to preach sobriety to everybody, because if you're not able to be sober with yourself, there's something you're running from, always, or something you're chasing after, always. And I still connect with the loved ones who have passed without doing the self-harming things that they were doing when they were on this plane. And that was a hard one for me to swallow, but everyone has a reason for what they're doing, and especially with addiction, there's always something behind it. So it's important to talk about, and I wish you all a sober, present, happy, healthy, present life, because you're not going to be happy all the time. I just wish everyone to be able to sit with themselves and to find contentment and peace in that. Good night.